The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. We're really excited to have you with us today. We're going to be talking about some new security feature updates for the MX security appliance here. My name is Emily. I'm a product marketing manager with Cisco. Let me go ahead and make this bigger. Here's the agenda for today. What we're going to do is we're going to give a very, very brief high-level overview of Cisco Meraki, why folks are choosing cloud networking, and then we're going to launch pretty quickly into the new features. We sort of expect that many of you have already been through an intro session. You're curious about the new features for the MX specifically. So we're not going to go through and demo a lot of the basic setup and basic functionality of the MX. We're actually going to go through and show you the new features. So if this is your first exposure to Meraki products or the MX in particular, we will give a little bit of a high-level overview, but I do encourage you to check out our regularly scheduled MX webinar. Then what we're going to do is we will wrap up, time permitting, with some Q&A. So that reminds me, my good friend and colleague Jackie is on the line right now. She's here to answer any and all questions that you might have. So please feel free to type those into the Q&A section of your GoToWebinar control panel. She'll be answering those questions live and also collecting the most commonly asked questions for me so that I can answer those during the session. So for those of you for whom this introduction is new, Cisco Meraki is a part of Cisco. We were actually, Meraki, the company, was founded in 2006 by a research team from MIT, and they were working on a project called the RoofNet project. And it was called that because they were literally climbing on top of rooftops in Cambridge, Massachusetts, affixing wireless access points to them and figuring out how to manage those over the internet. Now that technology became the foundation for Meraki, the company. We expanded out into 4 product lines, so we don't just make wireless access points. Obviously, we'll be talking about the MX security appliance today, but we also have aggregation and access layer switches, and we do make 100% free mobile device management for iOS, Android, Macs, and PCs as well. Now, Cisco took note of this, and they acquired us at the end of 2012. So we're excited to say we're the new cloud networking group within Cisco. We are one of their fastest growing business units. We see over 100% annual growth thus far. We've got thousands of clients, tens of millions of devices connected worldwide. We have been recognized by some of the leading IT analysts and media, so folks like Gartner in their Magic Quadrant, for example. And we are committed to all 4 of the product lines that I mentioned before. So you can see them sort of listed there on the right, the access points, the security appliance, the switches, the mobile device management, and all of these are designed to be 100% cloud managed. So anywhere in the world you have internet, from an internet accessible device, you can log into your dashboard, which is basically through the web browser, and manage your Meraki equipment. So why are folks choosing the cloud? Well, there's several reasons. In general, we think that our solution is meeting the evolving needs of the IT industry today. So if you think about it, right, and you think about all the different competitors out there and the vendors that you might be choosing from, when you're thinking about purchasing a unified threat management or UTM box, 80% of the UTM features are going to be the same across vendors. So you really need to figure out, well, what's important to me in choosing between them. And we feel that Meraki, with our cloud value proposition, is the right choice, mostly because we are such a straightforward, intuitive solution. We have a graphical user interface. There's no command line. There's no need for special training to get up and running. And making security easy to implement, I think, is incredibly important, especially when you think about the vulnerabilities that are possible from user configuration error and things like that. And so some of the challenges that we're seeing in the industry today, right, folks are dealing with multi-vendor deployments that increases management complexity. They have to roll out UTM boxes and networking gear to distributed sites perhaps. Maybe they're growing rapidly and they have to try to do this as quickly as possible. You know, you want to fight all sorts of malware, malicious attacks. You want to ensure uptime and availability. And then on top of that, you're dealing with complex licensing requirements, perhaps hardware costs to buy controllers and redundant controllers and things like that. And finally, just trying to get a handle and a grip on BYOD, folks using, you know, Netflix or Google Video or what have you, things that maybe aren't priority applications that are causing bandwidth bottlenecks and app abuse and things like that. And so the way we approach these problems, and you'll see this when we go through some of these slides and a little bit in the demos, you know, we are an intuitive, centralized product. You know, anywhere in the world you have internet, you open up a web browser, you go to your dashboard, or in fact, perhaps you use our mobile app, which we just released for iOS and Androids, and we're constantly updating. You go in and you manage your network. So you have this visibility and control from anywhere. You have incredible scalability because we're cloud-based. You can literally do things like pre-configure all of your Meraki equipment before it's ever been plugged in to power or plugged into the internet. And then when it is plugged in, you can go ahead and it'll pull its configuration settings from the cloud and run with it. So because we're cloud-based, you don't have traditional bottlenecks like the need to buy controllers or redundant controllers. You don't have device limits and things like that. So the cloud is infinitely scalable. We can literally grow and shrink with your needs. It's secure. We've got a lot of information. Certainly happy to answer any questions you may have about sort of the certifications and SLA agreements and uptime and availability and whatnot of our data centers, which are located all across the world, but very, very secure. In terms of cost savings, right, you know, we don't have the limitations of controllers. There are no device limits. Our licensing model is incredibly simple. We try to make it as easy, as intuitive as possible. So what we do is basically our model is there's just 2 SKUs that you need to worry about when you're purchasing a piece of Meraki equipment. There's the SKU for the hardware, so the SKU for the MX, whatever model you decide, for example, and then there's the license. So it can be 1, 3, 5, I think all the way up through 10 years. That's sort of one choice there. And then with the MX, you just decide whether you want sort of an enterprise license or an advanced security license. The difference between the two is simply, you know, if you want intrusion prevention, malware scanning, content filtering, you would go with the advanced security license, but otherwise all other functionalities included in the enterprise license. But that license also includes all of your technical support. It includes, you know, basically the features in the cloud managed console, so the dashboard, so the ability to go in and configure your devices and set settings, and then it includes all the feature and firmware updates that we're going to be pushing out to you over the course of your license. So we'll talk about that actually in a second in the next slide. And then I would just point out that, again, we have free mobile device management. It integrates. It's the same dashboard interface to go in and manage your mobile devices as it is to manage your security appliance or your access points or your switches. So it really is single pane of glass visibility there. So when we're talking about why folks would choose the MX in particular, I think we've touched on a lot of it just in terms of you know, sort of general Cisco Meraki benefits. But when we're talking about the MX in particular, I would say that it really is the best, most secure solution for distributed organizations, bar none. Easy to deploy, easy to use, easy to config, easy to maintain. So, you know, again, we push those seamless updates to you. You don't need to manually download and install anything across, you know, multiple hundreds, thousands of MXs to stay up to date. It's all automatic. We have a lot of built-in remote diagnostic tools. We call them live tools, but it's basically tools built into the dashboard to help you troubleshoot and diagnose issues with your security appliance. If you have the advanced security license, for example, you have access to things like integrated source fire intrusion prevention built right into the dashboard. There's this industry-leading visibility and control, so all of our equipment, not just the MX, but everything that we design and ship out can fingerprint users, can fingerprint applications. Oops, excuse me. It's wanting to log me out here. We'll stay on this page. That is a security feature. It's trying to time me out of the dashboard, actually, as we speak. I logged in earlier so that I can very quickly get to the new features and demo them for you. But you'll go in and we'll see. We'll see all of this. But you can literally hop, skip, and jump between MX security appliances, between networks, drill down into any piece of Meraki equipment, view the clients and the traffic passing through that equipment, and then drill down into a client device and get more information that way too if you'd like. So I would just say maybe the final thing, reason why perhaps the cloud-based or cloud-managed model is so strong and so awesome is the concept of feature velocity. And again, this ties back into what I was just saying, but how every quarter, roughly, all of our product lines will push out new firmware and feature updates to current Meraki customers. And so this slide is not comprehensive by any means, but does give you a sense for some of the main features that we've been pushing out over the last year. And you can see some of them are vertical specific, so we integrated YouTube for schools and implemented Safe Search, and some of them, things like retail analytics, for example, and some of them are more broad, configuration templates for folks that need to manage hundreds or thousands of MXs, but don't want to log into every single device to do so. They just want to create a template and push it out to all of those networks. So a lot of different things there, but again, it's a way of future-proofing your hardware investment, this feature velocity. Basically, MX that you own 3 or 5 years from now is going to be way more feature-rich than the MX you purchased today, and that's because we will have updated it so many times. So that is just a great, great benefit of being cloud-based. So without further ado, I do want to go in and get right down into the new features of the MX. We're really excited about what we have to announce today. We often get asked the question, why did we choose the features that we did for this particular update? And I'll just say there's many, many variables here. Obviously, we always pay attention to our Make-A-Wish feature. It's a little box on the bottom of every dashboard page where you can literally go in and say, I wish this page would, and you type in a request, and we actually monitor those pretty regularly and pretty seriously. So that helps guide our product roadmap. Also, we want to address market trends that we see, and so we have been seeing a lot of trends, particularly around sort of Geo Base Security and the need for redundancy and availability. And we also just want to round out our feature set. So we're always constantly improving the features in the MX. We put out a feature and then we'll just continually tweak it and make it better, often in conjunction with the input that we get from the Make-A-Wish feature. So what we are introducing today, and we'll go in and we'll talk about each of these features in more detail, and I will demo them for you, but we're going to be talking about data center redundancy. So augmented our auto VPN. It leverages our incredibly awesome, unbelievably simple auto VPN feature to provide for more complex VPN deployments, specifically sort of thinking through data center redundancy scenarios. So we'll talk about that in a second. We also now are introducing MX Warm Spare Failover. Now this is something that we've already had if you deployed your MX in something called VPN concentrator mode, but now this applies to MXs deployed in NAT mode as well. And we'll talk more about those two modes. Basically, you choose one or the other as the way of configuring your MX. One-to-many NAT. This is sort of rounding out feature functionality. It's one of the most heavily wished for features. We've basically now happy to announce that we're providing one-to-many NAT. And then finally, geo-based ACL. So these are basically firewall rules that let you permit or deny traffic to or from particular geographies. And we'll talk about that. And there's some visibility now built into the dashboard too around network flows, letting you see where traffic is coming from. All right, so let's talk about data center failover. Now, like I said before, what this is doing, essentially, it's extending the incredibly awesome auto VPN functionality that all MXs provide. And if you're unfamiliar with the MX, essentially in a nutshell, what auto VPN is it lets you set up site-to-site IPsec VPN in literally 3 clicks between 2 MXs in the dashboard. It's super easy. It supports hub and spoke and mesh VPN topologies, and it is probably the, if not one of, the killer features of the MX. So what we're doing here is we're leveraging VPN, the VPN topology, where you've got multiple sites connected to data centers that share subnets. And it basically allows for automatic, transparent failover to a predefined list of data centers. So basically, in a nutshell, you can configure significantly more complex VPN topologies, and you can do so easily. It's very easy to configure, and we'll show you as we go through in the demo momentarily. But what we're trying to allow you to do is say, all right, here's a list of data centers. I want to basically have a priority list for shared subnets. I'm going to have all my branch locations. They're going to go through or, basically route to one particular DC, the first one in the list for a particular subnet. And should that data center go down, we're going to fail over automatically and transparently to the next one on the list for that subnet. And this is a highly scalable solution. So it says here on the slide, you can go up to 5,000 devices, basically, what is supported by the model of MX in the data center as far as VPN connections. That's your limit. The 5,000 is not a hard number. There are some ways to sort of make that higher, but just sort of give you a rough estimate. This is basically a solution that can support many different branches or different hubs. And like the auto VPN, since we're basically leveraging this, it does also support hub and spoke and mesh topologies. And like I said before, we're using our auto VPN to establish connections. Now, one other thing to note is that we will be including OSPF route advertisements in the MXs, in the data centers, just to avoid the need to add static routes, OSPF static routes. So basically, we're going to make this super easy. Now, let me actually go in and show you what this looks like in the dashboard. All right. So unfortunately, my session timed out. So give me 1 second while I log in here. A very long password, so hopefully this works. Great. All right, so what I've done is I've gone into now, here's the 2 caveats before we begin. 1, we are recording this session, so if you have questions about that and you want to go back and view things, if I don't demo a particular detail that you're interested in and we don't get to it in the questions, have no fear, you can go back and view this later. But the second caveat is these features are going to be made generally available to current Meraki MX customers. We anticipate in August sometime, so you're seeing mostly finished products here. There might be some tweaks and changes every now and then to maybe the presentation of it and the UI, but for the most part, what you see is what you're going to get. So we'll walk through and I'll explain this to you, but one thing that I also want to highlight when we're talking about data center to data center failover is you should consider, if you're in this scenario and you are trying to manage multiple branches and you are trying to set up data center redundancy, you should also consider a feature that we released, a quarter or 2 ago called configuration templates. And basically what configuration templates let you do, they let you create a template that you can then attach 1, 10, hundreds, thousands of networks to. And so when you make a change to the template, those changes propagate out to the attached MXs. And what we're looking at here is a sort of a demo setup of how you would configure DC to DC failover, but within the context of a configuration template. So we're not actually looking at a network, we're looking actually at a template, and you'll see that we have the ability to go in and configure all of the different MX options and functionality from the template, and we have a bunch of different templates here that we've identified for this network, but then here's all the individual networks, and we would take these networks and apply templates to them. So any network that gets this template would have the configuration needed for this particular DC to DC failover setup. And so what we've done is we've got a split tunnel VPN. We're doing a hub and spoke topology for right now, and you can see I can come in here and list hubs. So these are essentially the data centers that I'm aware of, the data center MXs that I'm aware of. MX is sitting in a data center, and I can, we've got 3 listed here, but I can order them in any which way. And if I look a little bit further down, here's the subnets that each of these MXs, in a particular data center are exporting across the VPN. And where this would be interesting is if we had 2 identical subnets. So, for example, if this particular MX90B was in data center 1, MX70 was in data center 2, they're both sharing or advertising identical subnets. Let's just say, one is a primary data center, the second is a secondary data center, basically have the same resources available. The second is literally designed as a failover data center, all the branches connected to the first. You want to have them automatically switch over to the second in the event that those resources that are being advertised that are identical to each fail on the first. So, essentially what you would see here is perhaps you would see two subnets that are the same, and we don't unfortunately have any listed here that are identical, but that's where this order becomes important. If, for example, this was sharing a subnet with this, all of the branches that have this hub priority set up would route to the first data center. They would connect here first, and then in the event of failover, switch down the list. Go to this one, go to this one, go to the next one, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see it's really, really easy to set up. Literally, you're just creating a VPN. Within the VPN, you're saying, here are my hubs, my peers to connect to, and these are where your data center MXs live, and checking out which subnets you're actually going to export over VPN. So it's literally as simple as that as far as setup. Oops. So the second thing I want to talk about is the warm spare failover. And like I said before, this is already available for MXs that are configured in, and has been available for MXs that are configured in VPN concentrator mode, which is sort of a pass-through mode specifically designed for MXs that are serving as VPN concentrators. But now we have this functionality for MXs in NAT mode. And when you are configuring an MX, you're going to choose one of the other modes. The NAT mode is typically chosen if you're going to be using your MX as the default gateway. If you want to use your MX as a DHCP server, things like that, then you would put your MX in NAT mode. And it is an active passive setup. So the secondary MX will be passive until it's needed, and then it will spring into action. We use VRRP, so I believe that's the Virtual Routing Redundancy Protocol. So they're sharing a virtual IP and listening to each other to make sure in the event of a failure that they can, that the secondary can switch over very quickly and provide the same features as the primary. So this is everything. This is VPN, this is firewall rules, this is intrusion prevention if you've got it. And the beauty of VRRP is because there's a shared virtual IP, there's no need to reconfigure any dependent network devices. They're all just going to continue to route to that virtual IP. Now, we did have a question from the audience, which was, do you need a license for the spare? And we've actually changed things up. Previously, if you were going to implement warm spare VPN, basically using in VPN concentrator mode, you did have to buy a second license, but now what we're going to do is we're going to say no. If you're going to set up a high availability pair, you only need one license. One MX is going to be active, and we're actually going to apply this to existing customers who have set up HA pairs. So we're going to backport this so that way you get credit for that second license that you had. So let me actually go through and show you what it looks like. It's literally, if you are familiar with the way we currently implement warm spare, it's very, very simple, and it's basically the same in terms of the status and the configuration page. But so right here, you're going to go in and configure it. This might change. It might actually move to addressing and VLANs. For now, on this engineering setup, you go to site-to-site VPN. Literally, what you'll see is I want to add a warm spare. All you're going to do is add the device or the serial number here, and to go in and actually monitor your warm spare setup once it's in place, you're going to go in and view your appliance status page. So your primary MX, you'll go in, you'll look at the status, you'll come here, and what will happen is you will see both. You'll see the current master, which is the MX that we're looking at right now, and you'll see the spare status. So literally identical information about each. One will just sort of be waiting in the wings, though, in case the primary goes down. And this is a great page. It's basically giving you all the information about what kind of MX we're talking about, the uptime of the device, some useful statistics about its IP, and then, of course, this live tools. This is what we were talking about, or I was alluding to earlier when I said you have a lot of built-in troubleshooting and diagnostic tools built in. And what's beautiful about this page is you can actually go in if you wanted to use any of these tools on the primary MX that's active, the current master. You can, but you can also come in and choose to make modifications or run some diagnostic tests on the warm spare as well. So very, very easy and simple to do. So we are getting some questions from the audience, one of which is, for the warm spare, do they need to be the same model MX? I believe the answer is no. I would definitely double check that with your Meraki rep, but I'm fairly certain they can be different models. And if that is the case, though, you are going to want to ensure that the secondary or the backup has the resources to support whatever your network configuration is. So you don't want to necessarily have a MX600 failing over to an MX60. That would probably not be a great scenario. And then a second question was, on the warm spare, do you need 2 WAN connections? And the answer is no. The way the warm spare is set up physically is basically there's a designated port on both the primary and the spare, and you can either plug the MXs directly together. That way you're going to designate a port basically, and when you're going through the setup, and you can either plug the MXs directly to each other, so connecting them, or you can connect them through a switch if you want. And does warm spare equal hot standby? Yes. So we're talking about an active passive configuration here. So it is online, as you can see. It does have a connection out to the internet, but it is not, and it is up and running, but it is not being used for example, firewalling, DHCP, intrusion prevention, the way that the primary is. It would assume those responsibilities in the event of failover. These are great questions. Keep them coming. All right, so let's talk about flexible addressing. So unfortunately, I won't be able to demo this. It's still a bit under construction, so the engineers have asked that we not confuse everybody by showing you one user interface while they're making tweaks, but the functionality is locked in. Basically, what we're doing here is we are supporting port address translation. Now, as everybody knows, public IPv4 addresses are expensive, but they're still necessary and they're in high demand. And before, the functionality in the MX and what we have always supported is we support port forwarding. So, you can do port translation, but you are limited to having to use the public IP of the MX. So the WAN interface IP of the MX. So the other alternative that we supported was one-to-one NAT, which is very useful and great, but again, you are then limited to one internal server for every public IP, and there wasn't great port translation available there. So what we're doing here is basically saying all the functionality that you had with port forwarding, the ability to go in and translate different external ports into various private IPs and private ports. Now you can do that, but you don't have the public IP restriction. You're not limited to using the MX's WAN IP. So the screenshot that you see was the last known iteration of the UI that I have. So you can see exactly what you can do. You can go in and specify the public IPs. You're only limited by the number of public IPs your organization owns, and you would go in and you'd say, all right, here's my public IP, and it's listening on publicly on XYZ ports, and when I'm receiving inbound connections, I want to translate that into any sort of private IP, private port combo. So, and we see this often, obviously this is something that everybody pretty much wants and uses, and we consider this sort of just rounding out our addressing on the MX. It was a feature that we wanted to implement for a long time, and we finally got around to doing it. Now, one that I really like, this might be my favorite feature, is the Geo Base Security. So what we're talking about here, basically these are firewall rules that let you filter traffic based on geography. So you can permit or deny traffic to or from specific countries. And this is pretty awesome. It's kind of two parts. There's the firewall rules, and we'll go in and I'll show you that. And there's also some additional visibility, and I think we're going to continue to build out this feature, but it's neat because you can actually go in and see where your traffic is coming from or going to. So you can view the origin and destination of traffic flows. It's just a nice peace of mind feature, and I think it's worth mentioning that other vendors that supply this sort of thing, many of them only filter inbound traffic, but we also support filtering of outbound traffic. And the reason this is cool is because you can block those malicious, phone home scenarios that happen when you've been attacked in your own home country, but maybe there's a phone home out to a foreign country, and so that can be blocked and possibly help mitigate against attacks. Now, the list of IPs, basically that are assigned to countries, that does change, not very frequently, but it does change every now and then, and so we actually update our list monthly. So pretty much as up-to-date as you can be in terms of knowing which IP ranges are associated with which country. And so let me go in and show you what this looks like. It should be right here. All right, so typically what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll be configuring your firewall rules, and there's the normal setup here. This is site-wide, and if you come here, there's in the layer 7 section. Normally, when you come here, you're going in and you're blocking individual categories of traffic or specific applications, perhaps things like that. But now we also have this addition here, this countries little subsection. And you can select countries. And essentially what you can say, for example, is, all right, maybe what I want to do is deny any traffic that isn't to or from the United States. So essentially limiting all of your network traffic within a particular country. So I'm based in the United States, so this is my home country, so maybe I'm not expecting any international traffic, from business partners or things like that. I can just lock it down to the United States, or find other countries if I wanted to. Or I can say, I don't really care about that, but I do care about blocking traffic from maybe I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm just randomly picking a country here, but but maybe, I don't know, Belarus or something has become the hotbed of some sort of malicious attack, a botnet or something like that, I don't know, but you know, it's making headlines, and we know that if there's traffic coming in from Belarus, it might be bad, or China, or any other country here that we can see, and there's just a slew of them listed. And so just again, a nice peace of mind feature that you can do. Go in, set this up, and then what you can do is actually come in and view in your traffic analytics page, which will hopefully populate. Let me see. Let me look for the last week, see if we have any traffic. Again, these are oh no, these are like engineering machines here, so we may not. Here we go. So in the last month, we've had a couple of different traffic flows, and we can see, I think this is probably Hong Kong, if I had to guess. But you can see where the traffic is coming from or originating to, and either from this page here or from your client's page, where you go in and you actually get all the visibility into your clients and your traffic and things like that. And if you wanted to go in and look at your particular applications, you know, let's just pick one, miscellaneous web. And when this loads, typically, maybe there's not enough information here. We'll go look at another one. Perhaps we can find one with miscellaneous secure web. But typically, what we're implementing here is this country. So when we have enough information about particular applications, and again, this is a sort of a demo desk network, but you can imagine on a real life MX, lots and lots and lots of clients are probably accessing websites securely. You can go in and actually see where the countries basically that this traffic is originating from or going to. So very, very useful information. You know, if for some reason you're seeing a lot of peer-to-peer traffic to you know, some random country, Antigua or something, and there's no business use case for that. You know, at best, it's unofficial traffic that's not perhaps related to your business, but at worst, it might be some sort of phoning home or some sort of hack attempt, and you can just lock it down immediately by blocking traffic from that country. All right. So we actually went through and we did the demo, so I'm done there. Although if you wanted to see something else demoed or have any questions about sort of general MX functionality that you want to see, we do have quite a bit of time, which is good. So just type in those requests to Jackie, and we'll see if we can get to them. But I'm just going to wrap up now and sort of overview for those of you who aren't familiar. Again, the Meraki MX, it's a unified threat management box. So it does support an array of features and functionality, everything from firewalls to client VPN, site-to-site VPN, intrusion prevention, content filtering, malware scanning. You know, you can set group policies, you have visibility and control. They also have the ability to be put into, again, NAT mode if you need certain networking features like DHCP. All of our MXs support dual WAN uplinks. They all support the ability to use or fail over to 3G, 4G cellular links. They all support static routing, and they all actually come with a feature I didn't mention, but it's completely free and just is added in for your benefit, WAN optimization. So if you need to optimize the sending and receiving of traffic between two nodes in a VPN, WAN optimization is your feature. And we do make many models, so everything from small branch model, that would be the MX60 or the MX60W, which is our only wireless MX, you know, supporting branches on the order of 25, 30 users, all the way up through our MX600, which is a beast. It is designed for really large sort of main campus or large branch deployments, supports thousands of users, and then we have many, many models in between. I'll just put in a plug as well for something we never talk about much in webinars, but it's really cool. It's our little Z1 teleworker gateway device. It's awesome. It's like the size of a small package. It can sit unobtrusively on a desktop, and essentially it supports dual radio wireless. It provides the same automatic site-to-site IPsec VPN that the MXs do, and it's just great if you're in a teleworker environment, you've got maybe 1 to 5 users. Definitely recommend checking that guy out. So if any of this looks interesting to you and you want to find out more or take a Meraki MX for a test drive in your own environment, totally encourage you to take advantage of our awesome risk-free evaluation. You can go to that website, you can give us a call, but essentially all of the gear that we make is available for free evaluation. There's no risk to you. We pay the shipping both ways. It's a great way for you to test drive our gear, run it neck to neck with the competition, see what you like, get a chance to see how easy it is to deploy and set up. I would also encourage you to check out our website and our blog. We're constantly blogging about new features, updates, lots and lots of stuff, and I've posted a slew of posts on the new MX features and actually some new MS features that were also recently announced. So you can go there and get started. Lots of good sort of how to set up XYZ feature information there. And then, of course, give us a call anytime. So that wraps up the presentative portion of this. I'm going to pause for a second and check with Jackie. Looks like there's a ton of questions, and I will be right back to start answering those. So first question was, when are the features that I demoed going to be available and live? So the way it works, these will be made generally available sometime in August. It could be earlier. It might be before the end of this month, but safe bet for me to say is sometime next month in August. And typically what we do is we do a staggered rollout. So, everybody isn't all trying to download the same updates at the same time, but you can always call technical support and request an update sooner if you are not in the first staggered rollout. And actually, there is a very cool feature that I just noticed. It seems as though we've now given folks the ability to go in and do their own updates. So what do I mean by that? So if I come up here to this appliance status page for this MX, so the firmware is up to date on this guy, but I think one of them actually, here we go. For this one, for example, the firmware is not up to date, so it's running an older version of the firmware. So now we've notified you of this. You can actually go in, click this if you wanted to, and I believe what you'll get are some notes. Well, maybe this is just going in right now to so firmware updates. You can go in and schedule this. I've seen this demo before. It could just be that this is an engineering environment, but when I've clicked on this link before, it'll pop up with a little dialog box full of release notes and basically say, do you want to update now? And you hit now, and you go ahead and your firmware gets updated. So that's a cool feature. And let's see, anything on SSL VPN? That is a question we get often. It's a very good question. For right now, we do not support SSL VPN. It is something that is on our radar, and it's something that I think we'll be looking at in the future, along with any Connect support for those of you that are interested. But right now, we do not support SSL VPN. Another question is the warm spare available on all models? So the answer is yes, I believe so. This is not going to be limited to certain models of MX. If you have an MX60, I think you can still go ahead and fail over. Although of course you'll probably be failing over to another MX60, so it's great. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. So the question was, can you use redundant internet on a warm spare? So I'm interpreting the question as, can you have a warm spare that has a different WAN uplink connection than the primary? The answer is yes. Question about what sort of client VPN do we support? So for client VPN, we support your standard L2TP IPsec. That's sort of built into all modern operating systems now, including things like the iPad. It's very, very simple and easy to set up. We had a question on whether or not we support connections to Azure or I guess Amazon AWS over VPN. And the answer to that is yes, you can contact support for that functionality if you need that. We also had a question whether or not you could aggregate more than 2 WAN uplinks. And the answer is no, not at this time, but we're not going to rule that out in the long term. But for now, DMXs only support dual WAN uplinks. So question was, would blocking countries block all spam or traffic? And the answer is, if it is spam or traffic originating from that foreign country that you have blocked, then yes. Assuming that they're using an IP from the range that is designated for that country, the answer would be yes. You would be blocking all traffic. Another question is, can we get a copy of this webinar? And the answer is yes. We are recording this now, and we will be posting a copy of this webinar up on our website. I'll be right back. A good question that we get often, which is, can the MX be used with other vendors' products? So there's 2 points to that question. One is, can I have an MX and then do something like have ProCurve switches and Aruba access points? And then often the second part of that question might be something like, can I use my MX in a site-to-site VPN configuration with non-Meraki peers? So the answer to both of those questions is yes. For the first, you could just have an MX. That might be the only piece of Meraki equipment that you have. Sometimes we just see folks not even with an MX. Maybe they just have APs, or they just have a switch or two, or a layer of switches. That's totally fine. The only thing to be aware of there is that you always need to log into our web-based dashboard to manage Meraki equipment. So you will have at least 2 separate interfaces that you need to log into in order to manage your overall network gear. You're dealing with a multi-vendor deployment there, and you will have visibility. If you have a Meraki MX, you'll have visibility into all the devices beneath it that are passing traffic through it. You'll be able to see statistics on the devices and bandwidth consumed and applications requested and things like that, but you won't be able to use our dashboard to log in and manage Aruba access points, for example. That's not going to work. But you can absolutely deploy an MX alongside other gear. And then with the third-party VPN, it's a very common thing we often get asked about, and it's very, very easy to set up. Not quite as easy as the 3 clicks that you saw earlier, but just to sort of give you, let me actually just go in and show you on our Meraki network. So here's our production network right here. Where you would go in and set that up, you just go to site-to-site VPN, and what you're going to see, obviously, you'll see where you can go in and in the 3 clicks set up a VPN between MXs. But if you scroll all the way down, we have a lot of subnets, pardon me, but if you scroll all the way down, right down here, for example. So if you want to add a non-Meraki peer, very easy. You can add multiple peers. You may need to go in and set some additional firewall rules. We have a little slot right here to make it super easy. So these firewall rules apply to these connections if you need to basically create hub and spoke topologies or things like that. So good question. Let me see what else we have here. So a question which was, what about the AES encryption for phase 1 of the VPN connection? Good question. That is actually handled between the MX and the cloud. We have a great white paper on auto VPN and how it gets set up and the interactions between the MX and the cloud at our library, and there's a ton of documents there. For anyone in particular who's curious, I would go to meraki.cisco.com/library and then just do a search for VPN and you'll find it. Question, does the MX support a T1 connection? So the MX basically terminates with Ethernet. So answers that. Is Wi-Fi, do we have Wi-Fi support on the MX? Only with one model, that's the MX60W. It's a smaller model designed for branch offices. How long can the eval period be? It's typically, I think, a couple of weeks. I think 2, but you know, everything is negotiable. So if you need more, I think just talk to your Meraki rep and get that worked out and up and running. And then another good question that happens, I think every webinar. It's a great question. What happens if you lose connectivity to the internet? So if you lose connectivity to the internet, a few things happen. Your network will continue to run with its last known configuration. So firewall rules will still be in place. If you are running access points, for example, SSIDs will still broadcast. If you're authenticating, like you can, to local Active Directory or Radius servers or LDAP servers, all of that will still be in play. But of course, you cannot open up a web browser and go to dashboard.meraki.com and tweak your settings. So typically what we find is if your internet connection has gone down and it's not due to user error, typically you're troubleshooting the connection. You're not necessarily going in to try to reset a firewall rule. But if you have blown yourself up out of the water accidentally through a misconfiguration, we do offer a way to save yourself. Essentially, all of our equipment has a special URL. So if you are directly connected to or directly downstream of Meraki equipment, there are special URLs you can go to, and I believe for an MX, it's this guy. And so you can see this is our corporate network. I'm connected through an access point wirelessly and then through switches all the way up to our charmingly named MX400 here in our San Francisco office. But I can come in very quickly, type this in, see perhaps where my connectivity has dropped. Maybe it's between my device and the MX. Maybe it's between the MX and the internet, or just the internet and the cloud. I don't know. And I can come up here and configure uplinks, get traffic statistics, run speed tests, and things like that. I'm not a full admin here, so if I click this, I'm going to be prompted for basically a username and password, which I don't have. But if I were able to get in here, you could configure things like DHCP and static IP addresses, depending on the gear that we're talking about, enable or disable VLANs, enable ports, et cetera, et cetera. So enough stuff to get you out of the water. We had a request to demo intrusion prevention, so let me actually go ahead and do that. And we stay on this page. So if you're interested in intrusion prevention, it's pretty awesome and it's very, very easy to set up. You come in here, you are going to, once this pops up, basically you enable intrusion prevention, and you can either do intrusion prevention or intrusion detection or both, but in the security filtering tab, you come in here and you say, all right, I'm going to enable prevention. And then the way that we do this, and we worked very closely with the SourceFire team when Cisco acquired them to sort of realign and rejigger our MX behind the scenes to make this work more intuitively and more streamlined. We follow SourceFire's recommendation on applying security rule sets. So you can think of these as templates in a way as well. And it starts out from the least secure, which is connectivity, through medium security all the way up through very high security. And what this is SourceFire behind the scenes has rules that apply to each of these rule sets. So connectivity, for example, maybe SourceFire is only monitoring the highest level security threats in the past 2 years. Whereas if you select balanced, maybe you're getting the highest and the medium security threats that SourceFire has recognized in the last 2 years, along with maybe some identification for other things, rootkits or certain categories of malicious content. And then with security, I believe they up this to high and medium priority threats from the last 4 years, along with a slew of other things that they look out for. And behind the scenes, they are keeping this up to date. So they are moving off old, obsolete security threats and updating their rule sets with new security threats as they identify them. And the MX, we check daily to see if there are any updates to these rule sets. So you can rest assured that you have literally the most up-to-date secure malware definition, identification running on your intrusion prevention. And then what you can do is you can come in here. We have a built-in security report. It's very, very easy. Let's actually look for maybe the last month. It's very, very easy to come in and then view the results of the intrusion prevention. So you can come in and you can filter by different things here, client, network, the priority level of the event. And if you scroll down, you're getting a lot of information. So we can see we're seeing a lot of medium threats and a few high-level threats here at our Meraki office in San Francisco. And we can see that these things have been blocked. And if I click on them, I'm getting a lot more information, like CVE articles and things like that I can reach out to. All right, I just got a notice from the person delivering the next webinar that my time is up, but hopefully this has been useful and interesting to you. Again, please check our webinars for sort of our general MX webinar. If you've asked a question, have no fear, we've captured them. If it didn't get answered, someone should be reaching out to you with an answer. And hopefully you guys have a great day and hope to see you again soon at a future webinar. Thanks so much.